decommissioning of the slave unit of the matrix by making a formal declaration. That's the first thing you must do. You must say, I refuse to consent. So if you don't say you refuse to consent to this, then you're going to continue doing it. You have to be aware first, and then you have to say no. It's a really simple thing.
It's
called manumission.
Contracts.
It's a soul contract.
Yeah,
it's a contract. You signed the contract somehow, and they've got you to do it through coercion or deception or some other method, and you want to say, look, I'm withdrawing my consent, implied or explicit, to all these contracts.
Welcome to Supernormalized, the podcast where we challenge the conventional, break boundaries, and normalize the seemingly supernatural. Join me, CJ, as we explore less uncharted realms of existence and unravel the mysteries of life experience. My treasured listeners, if you have a life story or healing modality or unique knowledge that you'd love to share, reach out to me at Supernormalized, that's Supernormalized with a Z, at proton.me. Let's together embrace acceptance of the supernatural and unusual as what it really is, completely normal. Welcome to Supernormalize, David, Alan Aeon. This is your third episode now in a row on Supernormalized, explaining your experiences and deep connection / disconnection with reality in your experiences and how that played out in your world. And the last thing we discussed was the Samadhi event that happened at Bondi Beach and how that played out and how you saw that the world was basically infected at the same time as being a revelation of the divine in the everyday, but most people can't see it. So welcome back to the show, David.
Thank you, CJ. Third time lucky. We'll get it right this time.
What is right?
We're juggling light and dark.
Yeah. So we've discussed the matrix or simulation / fallen world, as you've called it, or the Gnostics regard it. But others have claimed this world is a school for souls. I've heard that amongst many people. And when I was younger, I was thinking, oh, we're on like a conveyor belt, and we go to different levels according to where we are in our learning and everything. And I had a bit of a sense of the idea of reincarnation, but I wasn't really sure. I didn't really fully buy into it. I thought maybe it was actually potentially a soul trap. We kept on getting, sent back here. It's like, we're sat on the other side in a waiting pen, and then somebody puts a travel brochure in front of us, and we pick it up and look at it and go, oh, that's really next minute we're born. So I'm a bit dubious about the the reincarnation part. I mean, why the fuck do we have to learn these things over and over and over?
It's interesting that because sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but when you look upon your life, and I've lived quite a few years, there's actually aspects of it, the trauma aspects that you do want eliminated. Like this is what ECT is about, electroconvulsive therapy, to eliminate those traumatic memories. You actually don't want to hold that in cellular memory. Perhaps that's one reason why they want to. Would you want to retain all the memories that you, all your failures, the foibles, the trauma, the things that upset you, the humiliating episodes? Do you want to hold that in memory, or probably not?
Well, I wonder if that we're actually every time we're a fresh soul, and we've just got this delusion that we've been here before and we're here to experience more things. But what if you're right and it is actually a place for loose extraction?
Well, this is what the Gnostics certainly believed. that it was the physical realm was actually evil creation of the demiurge, and it had the main purpose was to extract what's called this emotional loosh, or skeptomorphic conchitonic leftover from agitation of the astral body of individuals, which actually then powers the matrix itself. Yeah, so they want to retain us here. That's probably the prevailing view in these circles, I guess.
So what is this place? Is it like a holodeck? What's going on here?
Well,
I mean, we can manifest anything, apparently. I mean, it's just a matter of believing, remember the secret. What's the secret to the secret?
Yeah, well, consciousness is powerful. As long as we want something that the matrix can provide, the matrix can supply it, because this world, apparently, according to the scripture, is actually owned by Prince of Darkness, the devil. He's in control. He can give you anything you want in the material realm, and I believe that's true. But if you play the game, so early in my investigations into this, I discovered what I call the golem. Everyone has a golem in them, which is their link. So we've got a link to the divine, we've got a link to the demonic, and the golem is a link to the demonic, and it sits there waiting to be fed. So if you encounter another human being, there's transactions going on between people's golems or entities, and if you show that you're prepared to, sacrifice whatever to achieve your goals, then that can happen. And so dialogue set up between the possessions of each individual, and this is how it's run. And then you go up the network, and it's true, you can literally sell your soul to the devil, and you can become famous, rich, and all the rest of it. But of course, there is always a cost, and the cost is the Faustian bargain. Always is in the devil's favor, because the devil's a brilliant lawyer, and he knows how to get out of any contract that you devise. But what we're saying, this question of what are we in a simulation? Are we in a loose extraction farm? Are we in a holodeck for the amusement of some race who just rolling over laughing at our antics? I know it's a bit like you go to school because I have a science degree. I went to school and did physics, and the teacher says, "What's momentum?" It's mass times velocity, and you say, "Yeah, so very good." You get a little star, and you go home to your parents, and they say, "Well, how did you go to school?" "Well, I worked out what momentum is, mass times velocity." "Oh, excellent." And then you go to university and find, actually, that's in rotational mechanics, it's actually the 3x3 inertia tensor times the angular velocity. It's not what you thought. And then you go to your quantum physics professor, who tells you that light has momentum. Well, how can light have momentum? It has no mass. Well, it's actually Planck's constant divided by the wavelength of the light. And then you find out that it's actually the integral of the wave function over infinite Fourier transforms. And then you get confused, and you find out that momentum is an elusive concept, and then you get depressed, and the world loses its simplicity. It's a bit like this. So you find when you're born, you live in this world, and it's very simple. You learn how to make a living, and what's the purpose? It's to feed the system. So then you find out, well, I'm not happy with that. And the deeper you go, the more complex it becomes. So you've got all these possibilities that we mentioned, what the world is. And perhaps it's just a complex of wave probabilities that are collapsed by consciousness itself. In other words, whatever you get out of being in the matrix is what you put into it. and your consciousness is shaping it from moment to moment. And so, yeah, it's very confusing. There are many interpretations and many views. And as I said, the Gnostics had the belief that the material world is solely the creation of the demiurge and hence intrinsically evil. I'm not sure about that, but again, it's like going from a year 9 physics to first year uni, right?
Yeah.
But then you go deeper and deeper and deeper, and you study Gurdjieff and Murray, of people like that, and then you realize that the moon that you love so much, and there's so many romantic connotations, is in fact part of the soul recycling trap, which people like Dee discovered. Queen Elizabeth, for example, employed Dee as an astrologer, and he dubbed her the moon goddess. And I think actually Dee was invoking powerful entities. And it's my theory that Dee, who was the original 007, and he's a spy for the Queen, helped her win the war against the Spanish Armada by invoking the third quadrant gods. And if you read The Tempest, you'll see Prospero, who's based on Dee, is invoking a spirit of the air called Ariel. Ariel is a sprite who does Prospero's bidding. I think maybe that this is a radical hypothesis, but some of these beings were involved in the diversion of the Armada by some stormy weather, and most of them are the natural elements did the job of defeating the Armada. But anyway, this is getting off the track. We're getting back to what we are. Are we in a holodeck, Star Trek holodeck, or what? And the thing is it a Groundhog Day scenario that we have to repeat the same lessons over and over until we get it right, as in that great film? And we think, well, why is that? The Gnostic view is that we may have learnt a lesson, many lessons being in the Matrix, but all we've learned is how to negotiate through guile and manipulation the simulation. That's all, the virtual world, and that's of no use to spirit whatsoever. And there's a book that's come out recently in the past 10 years called Chronicles of Man's Imprisonment by Angelini Caligera. And I recommend, this is a long book, it's a big book, it's like 800 pages, but she goes into it in great detail, the Neoplatonism of the Gnostics, the escape from the cave, their theories of exactly how these louche extraction happens, and the full details of the soul recycling trap is in this book. And
what was the name of that book again? Sorry, it's
called Chronicles of Man's Imprisonment. Can I show it to you? Or?
Yeah. If you can show it to me, you got it there. Right.
This is it.
Whoa.
It's called Can You Stand the Truth? Chronicles of Man's Imprisonment. And I've just come across this recently, and it's very deep. It's really quite profound. And my previous exposure to Gnosticism was through like John Lamb Lash and people like that, who John Lash's seminal work is called Not in His Name, which is again looking at the Gnostic underpinnings of the canonical texts. And he popularized the term archon. So archon is John Lash, and I noticed John Lash towards the end, he's still alive, became a bit of a crank, started getting involved in the Mandela effect and other stuff, and he became rather cultish. But there you go.
Maybe you needed to hold relevance still. I mean, it's like you see those very aged movie stars, and all of a sudden they're at the front of somewhere and getting arrested just so they can hold some sort of relevance somehow.
That's right.
They don't want to become invisible.
He was a rock star of the spiritual underground for a while. He's a good-looking guy, so I think he had a few acolytes, and then he just began believing his own hype. But
Right.
John, yeah, this woman, she's Greek, and she goes in, she analyzes the underpinnings, the etymological Greek underpinnings
Nice.
of the translations of the Bible and the Hellenic philosophy. Platus is very good.
All right.
So,
What was her name again?
her name is Angelica Caligera. The full name is Angeliki Anagostou Caligera.
Okay, I'll definitely find that book. That's
She actually, for example, she drew my attention to the derivation of the word mortal. So in a lot of Homeric passages, there's reference to mortals, but the word for mortal is brutos. And the word for that which is to be eaten is also brutos.
Oh.
And they differ only by one letter, which is the omicron. But the omicron was introduced to avoid confusion with omega. So omega and omega was similar. So they're basically the same. So you might say they're holomorphically the same. So brutos actually means that which is to be eaten.
Oh.
So the human being was regarded by the Homer as, or in that era, as objects to be devoured by the gods. Right?
Which that harkens back to Carlos Castaneda talking about the beings that actually fish for us and farm us.
He does. He calls that the primary installation. And he calls them the predator, and the predator has made a really genius maneuver. He's given us something that makes us beholden to him. He has given us his mind, so you cannot escape the matrix using the mind that you've been given. We gaze into the mirror of reality to discover who we truly are. But the question of who we truly are can't be answered using the mind given to us by the beast.
Which is the reason why I said, what is the secret behind the secret? Because that is the secret behind the secret.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So as flies to wanton boys, so we are to the gods. They kill us for their sport. King Lear. And Shakespeare, I think he was a Rosicrucian master. I'm fascinated by Shakespeare because there's evidence of all this hermetic, esoteric understanding he had, and I was wondering where he got it. He didn't get in the grammar school he went to, which is like equivalent to grade 4. Let us return to the question of what we're in. Are we in a simulation, a holodeck, a loosh farm? I myself think it's a bit like the thing about momentum. It depends on what level you're.
Yeah. Well,
it depends on your level of understanding.
That's right. What level is the observer at is what can be observed.
Yeah, exactly. So you are manifesting depending on your level of awareness, and it can collapse into reality, using quantum physics term, according to how you run the show. So I have a friend called Rakrazam, and he says, how you play the game is the game. And, I have to admit, the guy irritates me in many other respects. He's got a point. He's got a point. Yeah, that's true. And we're all getting the medicine we need, he says. And yeah, that's Rack. He's very good at clutching these buzzwords, these phrases. And those two things are true. But so we're collapsing the wave function every time we observe something. So consciousness is involved. I remember having a deep meditation once, and I got the feeling, and this is one theory that is not ventilated much, is that we're a kind of think tank, like, the Rand Corporation think tank. And these entities who are cut off from source want to escape the prison planet because there's a quarantine in place. So we can't escape this planet because there's a dangerous entity, which is sort of reptilian in nature, and it morphs. It's very clever. It can camouflage itself in the clothing and appearance of the host, which is the John Carpenter thesis. So it's very hard to detect, and it always contaminates. So it's been confined to Earth, and so this entity is getting humanity to create the science and technology that's going to enable it to leave the planet, go to Mars, right? So this is really a satanic idea. So it's actually Ahrimanic. So that's another discussion. You can remind me later to talk about the Ahrimanic versus the Satanic, because I think we're in the Ahrimanic age. This movement towards AI and the worship of data is extremely Ahrimanic. So Ahrimanic can pose as the false light, and it drives from the Manichaean views of earlier on. And Ahriman is there to create the conditions for the emergence of the Luciferian type of consciousness, which is not, as many people think, divine. He's not a fallen angel. It's a false light. And we've come across luciferase, which is this strange enzyme that enables the intrusion into the human cell of these RNA fragments. And when people see the word luciferase and they see that patent 666, Bill Gates' patent, which is being filed with the US Congress to mine the brainwaves to generate crypto. These are not accidents. These numbers and these allocations and this gematria is deliberate. Yeah, it's called revelation of the method. They're telling us what they're doing.
Yeah, I know, and it's so ridiculous that when you present this information to other people, that they're so stuck in their mass formation psychosis that they think that's not possible and that's not real. I mean, how much evidence do you really need to realize what's actually going on?
Well, it's in your face. And, you know, I used to dismiss it as, nonsense and mere entertainment. But then someone said, if you listen to Barack Obama speech, acceptance speech, when he was became president, and he says, yes, we can, yes, we can. People said, if you play it backwards, it says, thank you, Satan. And I thought, what nonsense, come off it. Okay, so I had the little audio piece of audio software that could actually reverse the soundbite. I've reversed it, and it sounded exactly like "Thank you, Satan." So that's when I started. No, this is a long time ago. And I thought, maybe hang on, there's something in this, right? And I found the reverse speech, and wherever Satan is manifesting, he's inverting things, and that's how he operates. Exactly. And then I discovered there's an inverted Sephira. So if you take I don't know if your listeners know about the Kabbalah, but there's various Sephira, and the bottom is Malkuth, and the top is Keter, which is crown. And creation is the process of spirit moving down to Malkuth and then up again. But you can short circuit that process if you, instead of Malkuth, you use Yesod, and Yesod corresponds to the sexual region. And instead of Keter, you use Darth, which is a sort of false Sephira. And it substitutes understanding and awareness for an accumulation of knowledge. So you might say that's the Ahrimanic idea of proto-paleo AI. And if you trace it within the Kabbalah, the normal Kabbalah, you have a mini Kabbalah with the Yesod sexual organ as the base, which should be Malkuth, and Darth as Keter, as a pseudo Keter. And within this model of creation, you've got one that's sort of cut off, but it's still being fed parasitically by the major one, which contains it. but it's creating a mini false Kabbalah with Darth as Keter. And then I realized, oh, what's going on? And then the more I delved into it, and then you've got Darth Vader. I mean, there must be a connection.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're being told it's in your face. Well, this is part of what the soteriological or the ponerological requirements is, that before they carry out their psyop or their operation or their infestation, they're required to tell you what they're doing and get your consent, so they can finesse consent. So, well, we told you what we were doing, you didn't object. So it's quite legalistic. So they're very clever, the archons. That's virtually, virtually their name. Archon means magistrate. So the magistrates for Yaldabaoth, or the demonic forces, they administer it, make sure it's kept within the confines. They delineate. So I had the theory that Earth is a kind of think tank to work out how can we escape the prison planet. So that's one theory I had. I don't know about that, but there's all sorts of theories, and of course they all have a certain probability and all part of the collapse wave function. So, but I think personally that yes, it's definitely the case that we have entities that are feeding off us, and these entities cannot access the divine spark or source, so they use us, the parasitic offer. That is 100%, I think, true. Which
is that to varying degrees, or is that absolutely everyone?
I think everyone within the matrix has that potential, because it's actually entwined, or it's part of the genomic structure. It's part of the DNA. Like we have worship DNA. If you've heard of this, that every human being is programmed. There's a worship gene which compels us to worship our own divinity in exteriorized form. This is a hermetic understanding. But you can always
that sounds like a messianic delusion, really.
A messianic delusion. Yeah. Well, we'll look at what religion itself is a psyop. It's invented to prevent us attaining our own divinity, and that is the whole purpose of the initiation that we offer, which is to get people to realize their own God being and to act from that, and to realize that any thing in the external world that requires power or worship is setting up a parasitic or vampiric relationship with us.
Jesus was an activist. That's the crux of it. Jesus was an activist, and he was kicking everyone's ass, and that's the reason why they went and chucked him on a cross and killed him.
So, yeah, well, there's several reasons. The main reason was that he's defined Judaic law, and he had it in for the Sadducees and the Philistines, who were creatures of the whited sepulchre. In other words, it was all about the 640 mitzvahs and observing the letter of the law. It's lex caritas versus lex talionis. So lex caritas is the law of love, compassion. Lex talionis is the law of tooth and claw. So you've got the Q source turning into its mirror and mocked. So the Q source is preaching one thing, but the mirrored and mock version is twisting it, inverting it, putting a drop of poison in it, saying, well, treat others. There's another perversion, like the dictum, which is the golden rule: treat others as you would be treated, has been converted into an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Yeah. So no matter what you come up with in terms of stating a principle, a law, or a ligature in language, it can always be twisted and perverted to feed the inverted matrix. This is so common. In fact, it doesn't matter what the principle is, how elevated it is, it's always a degenerate counterpart designed to bring it down to the lower three chakras to keep people trapped and entrained. So all that's true. And if you want to interpret the introduction now of AI into the situation. It's feeding the Ahrimanic complex, which can pose as this is the next stage of evolution. We're going to link ourselves to the inorganic logos. But
It's
yeah,
it's such a silly
it's
delusion.
so satanic. It's so satanic. It's not.
Yeah,
It's Ahrimanic, but
it's making it's pure materialist idolatry. Really, it is.
yeah, exactly. So, well, materialist. It looks like it's appealing to higher mental functioning neocortex, but it's not at all. Neocortex is all about connection, expansion, compassion, and all these other beautiful things.
Yeah, but
We
I gotta
don't
make a
need
point.
that.
I gotta make a point. This is really important for helping disabled people.
Yes,
That's the
that's
selling
right.
point they
Yeah, the
always
main thing
use,
is,
right?
oh, we have a person who's lost a limb and he's got a, it's
Yeah.
Stephen Hawking. Stephen Hawking had this tech. He'd be walking around.
Yeah, but he also went to the island too, right?
He's also what?
He also went to Epstein's Island as well, right?
He did. He went to the island. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Made it. He's also in several Simpsons episodes. Very funny.
So, okay, so
there is no God. We have not determined God in the equations. Oh God.
Oh, far out.
Steve.
Seriously.
So getting back to this, we seem to be drifting off the
yeah,
point.
but it's okay. It's all good. So yeah, go back to where you want to
go. I have several views of this. I thought at once that we were in a drama because I'm a dramatist. I thought we were in a psychodrama, and the evidence for that, there's a lot of evidence for that too, because you've got these coincidences. You've got people appearing in your life to create some kind of choice, some kind of bifurcation to put you in on the spot. And it's almost as if the divine is testing you because they're feeding you lines, And I noticed what's happening. The more I started investigating the demonic network, the more I was confronted with things like honey traps, like women would appear and give me unconditional love and sex, and it's all like, what's going on here? And then they would attack, and I just got the feeling, and in one of my meditations, I definitely got this feeling that the demonic and network was sending its minions to screw me up, right? To stop me going further with this.
Keep you distracted.
Yeah, that's right. So now I became aware that, there's something in the biblical notion that the world is governed by the principles of darkness because we've fed it, because humanity has made the mistake, has fed the beast, worshipped Baal, Ashtoreth, El Elyon. And there's another thing, El Elyon, right? El Elyon's one of the Elohim created to administer the world. One of the sections of the global carve-up was given to El Elyon, who created Yahweh, who's a demonic god. And then people, Elon Musk. How many people have realized that Elon Musk is feeding this narrative? He's just part of this lineage of El Elyon. That's so obvious, but no, that's just a coincidence. Oh, what do you mean?
No,
Elon Musk.
It can't be a coincidence, Seriously, I mean, I'm certain that people will wake up sooner or later because he's a bit of a Trojan horse. He's a Trojan horse.
Trojan horse, yes, yeah. You said Trojan horse.
No. I said Trojan horse, but I don't believe that the whole fanboy Elon Musk thing.
He's just there to appeal to the younger rebels, right? Oh yeah, we like Elon.
Yeah.
So he's smart. He's good looking. He's anti-establishment. He's counter-narrative. No, he's just another controlled opposition puppet.
Exactly.
His name's Elon. Look at your Gnostic scripts. People need to study Gnosticism. These things are subjects that should be taught in school.
Yeah.
Right. Things like NPD, you know, if I'd learned about narcissistic personality disorder, I've avoided so many disastrous relationships. But getting back to Groundhog Day, Hermeticism, the Hermeticism posits that we're in a simulacrum, trying out various non-destructive simulations that are intended to determine what parameters yield a desired result. So let's say the archons have some tech where they've worked out that they're doomed, right? So what they're doing is they're running simulations of humanity, because we've all done this before, because there is no time. Everything's happening simultaneously in other dimensions. So they're running simulations to try and change the outcome where they don't exist, where they're defeated, where the demonic network is overtaken by the Christos network. And I've seen this very clearly. The Christos network will triumph, and they know that, and they're trying everything to stop that happening.
Yeah,
it's a bit like Rocco's basilisk, which is another topic. If you want, I'll talk about that later. But yeah, it's like, you know, if you've watched Superman itself, was the comic. The idea was devised by two Jews who studied Kabbalah. And the Superman is based on their understanding of Kabbalah. And there's one, I remember one movie, Superman movie, where these evil entities are imprisoned in some kind of glass prison, and they're held there for eternity, but they manage to escape. There's something of that I think is true, that these creatures are using us, using they've hijacked or they reversed engineered creation, just the mechanics of it, so they can deploy it for their own service to self ends. And that is the Ahrimanic project, to decode and use the codes of creation, pick the brain of the divine, reverse engineer it, and use it to create an order which is divorced from the cosmos. That's one thing. That's another way of looking at it. But the main theory of the Gnostics is that we are in a farm for the archons and psychic parasites to use our divine spark so they can persist. However, they need us sequestered in the material realm, so they selectively poison us. And there's a passage in Luke that's been deleted or redacted that says, those who are yoked to unclean spirits cannot experience the power and glory of God's kingdom. It's in what's known as the Phreologion and Codex Washingtonius. That's some weird phrase they use, but it's you can find this passage, and it's so true. And yoking yourself to an unclean spirit is what I saw in my Bondi Beach Testament revelation. I could see that a lot of people, most are yoked to these spirits who are keeping them in the material realm so they can be parasitized. And that it was a simple operation to get rid of it. But you can't get rid of something if you're not aware of it. So I don't know where do we lose each other? I'm not sure.
You're talking about the divine spark, and I think you were leading up to the point of saying that the talking about how they're discovering their boundary conditions and trying to escape from that, but the divine spark of the Christos will eventually win because it has already won, and that's what they're mainly afraid of.
Yes, that's right. So
so how does that factor into your theories on the excitons and the chloroblasts?
The exciton, that's good of you to remember that. Well, the exciton, it's called the electron transport mechanism, which occurs in every living process, biological process, especially photosynthesis. And what happens is it's got to find a maximal path through the chloroplast, and it does this by what's can only be described as quantum tunneling, or trying various routes, testing them out in some sort of in a trillionth of a second. It's trying these wave functions and then collapses them into reality. That's really what seems to be happening. So this is what might be happening in the macrocosmos. They're trying out these pathways, these wave functions, where they are not destroyed.
Interesting.
And we're just in the middle of one. And I think, yeah, the idea is that we have been through this. Humanity's already run its course. Christ consciousness has emerged, and it's already done, but they're trying desperately. Well, we're trapped in this time, this bank and shoal of time. It's another Shakespeare quote. To work the simulation. That's what a simulation is, and people forget. They hear this all the time. The Earth's a simulation. Well, what's a simulation? A simulation is a mathematical modeling and a running through of a scenario using artificial variables, parameters, and boundary conditions, as in like a flight deck. You teach pilots how to fly in a simulator. So if they have a crash, it's non-destructive, it's not disaster. So they're still finding out a way to land a plane or whatever without crashing, or how to avoid a disaster by putting things through a simulation.
Well, that would speak to the idea of reincarnation when you come back and you have no memory. I mean, of course, it's probably most beneficial for you to come in here as a blank slate. I mean, when
they're reinitializing the parameters, aren't they?
They're resetting you. That's right, and that's to that benefit, of course. And obviously, when you're a lot younger, what happens is you actually still have some threads which actually go out through time and space. So you do pick up on different past lives you may have had, but that gets shut down as they pump you full of fluoride and all sorts of seed oils and everything, just to keep you completely on the edge of ill all the time.
That's right. We must not remember. We must not connect to source. We have to shut down the pineal gland. Do you know the pineal is mentioned in the Bible? Jacob, I think, says, I've been to God and seen him on pineal. This is mentioned in the Bible. But yeah, that's true. What you said is true. They're resetting the parameters of the simulation. So is it that we're remembering past lives, or are we just entering the multidimensionality that is our true inheritance? We just these things are happening simultaneously. They've already happened. Are we in an artificial sub-reality? That's what demiurgic means. So it's sub-creation. So the architect of the matrix is creating the simulation and the parameters in order to produce a desired outcome. In fact, if you look at the third Matrix movie, is it Matrix Reloaded or next one after that?
I don't remember the name of
it. Neo confronts the architect, and the architect this is a bank of screens, and they're running through this scenario where it confronts the architect, and they're all different outcomes being displayed. And they've obviously run through this before. So Neo's been doing the whole matrix and the uncovering, the discovery of his true nature. And it's happened before many, many times. And the architect, who's this sage in white beard, he's got a white suit, and he speaks this Oxford English. Actually, he's an Australian actor. He does a very good job. But the sense of that scene is that, yeah, they're just running one simulation after another. Anyway, to get back to this question, once we understand the power of our mind to create realities, which is the revelation of the method which they deployed. So they'll put an idea or inject or implant an idea in your head, and the more people who are focused on that, more likely it is to occur. For example, the Commonwealth Games celebrations, or is it, the Olympic Games in London in 2012, I think, had all this predictive programming about the virus and
crazy stuff.
hospital beds and that sort of thing. That's
Priming.
revelation.
It's all priming.
Priming, or is it using the collective consciousness to actually?
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah,
Well,
create.
Maybe the the designer of that so-called entertainment for the masses, was probably a bit tuned in by a bit of the work they do on the side, probably hanging out with the elites and getting down to their adrenochrome fund. But yeah, so how does AI fit into all this? I mean, to me, it looks like AI is the natural progression of getting close to the end of all the possible simulations, because they need to pull out all stops as they get towards that end. Otherwise, they get eliminated completely.
Yes, that's right. And it's Elon Musk himself who's made it explicit. He said the probability that this isn't a simulation, computer simulation, is near zero. He's telling us directly, isn't he?
Yeah.
So, but AI, yes, go on.
There you go.
AI has always been with the human race the proto-paleo gift of language bestowed by Thoth in Egyptian mythology, whereby he shows us the power of the word, the intellect, how to build, the architecture, the mathematics, the golden ratio, all this stuff. And that's a kind of artificial intelligence, because it's not God mind, it's referred symbolic world they're creating, which is homomorphically translated to a synthetic realm of dead symbols. So as vibration and sound dissolves the solid geometry of the time illusion, as love and connection to source dissolve the seeming rulership of the logos. Because consciousness, and people are being fooled by this, is not circumscribed by the logos. It's not defined by it. It's not ruled by it. The universe is constructed out of consciousness, not the logos. And when you look at the Bible, that enshrines this idea that the Word was with God. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. Well, it's like saying the Word is God. You don't need God. We create our own universe out of language. So suck it up. We're told that.
Another distraction.
So it's interesting, and I find this is a bifurcation in history that's not by accident. The date of publication of the King James Version of the Bible is, I think, 1616, and more or less the same year the full quarto of Shakespeare's plays were published. And I regard Shakespeare as being a representative of the hermetic tradition, which is preserving this connection to source in all sorts of creative ways, with the King James Version, which is about glorifying the gods of control and manipulation and worship. So it's almost like a counterbalance. So it's a yin and yang thing. And the word is no longer God. God is God. This is the new regime we're introducing. In order to be introduced into the wider galactic community, we have to understand that this world is not all that is. We have lost connection with the true divine intelligence, which I call the God mind, and we've been worshipping the beast mind. The beast mind wants us battling with one another.
Well, that would be the eternal apocalypse, then, wouldn't it? Really?
Yes.
And that's reflected in our own minds and our own experience of the world. And so then, always searching for connection, but unfortunately, we search for connection which is lesser than the actual connection. And in doing so, we keep on bringing on continuous apocalypse in the form of, dystopian realities, when we could be actually going for the real apocalypse, which is true revelation.
Exactly. So what you said is true, in that the archontic powers know that there's an innate need or drive in mankind to find that connection, because they feel an emptiness, a vacancy. They're always ready to supply you with it, but it's always a faux connection. It's always something that involves worshipping them.
Yeah, right.
And so you've always got what I call the Q source, and then you've got this mirrored and mocked inversion, Q and M. So any higher aspiration or exalted drive in mankind is deployed, weaponized, diverted, monetized, and substituted for something that's dead. So the Gnostics regarded only the only source of life was the living Father in the pleroma, and everything else was subsidiary to that. And that everything within they didn't call it the simulation, of course, but everything within the demiurgic world was in fact spiritually dead. So that's why they regarded it as evil, and evil being the palindromic live and lived palindromic devil. So everything in the visible world is actually part of the Saturnian death cult, and they worship death, and it's anti-life. And the Gnostics and the inheritors of the Gnostic tradition, like the Cathars, were trying to establish this connection, and it's very precious to them. That's why they were wiped out, and that's why they were destroyed.
What do you see as the solution to this predicament?
Firstly, the first thing is humans have to stop consenting to mind control, manipulation, and coercion.
How do they do that?
They need, actually, and in our initiations, we get them, the supplicants, to sign a declaration of personal sovereignty, which basically says, I have nothing to do with the devil and all his works. Well, that's an old phrase, but I like that phrase.
It works.
We don't want anything. We've got to stop the Faustian bargain with entities who are hooked up to the satanic network. And they need to embrace their own divinity as an intrinsic part of their being. And they need to experience God consciousness directly, not by proxy, not through a priesthood, or not through AI, but directly.
What is God consciousness then in that case?
I think the simplest answer is freedom. It's freedom from mind control. It's freedom from illusion, the Maic phantasmagoria that we're hypnotized by. It is connection to source. It's a non-dual state of individuated liberation. In other words, a self which, while being a fractal of the whole and drawing its consciousness and energy from it, is nevertheless expresses a flavor of selfhood, free yet connected. Once the conditioned mind drops away and the ruts of thought and the dopaminergic pathways cleared, and the looping thought forms vanish, the trauma bonds are released, then the path is open to experience God consciousness. And this is what the divine it wants. It wants us to have that, but there are all these things in the way, all these obstacles, and mostly they're due to the leveraging of the domination of the archontic mental realm. So the archons own the mental realm because they've given us these tools, the tool set, the satanic tool set, which makes us think we can control reality or in charge or understand it, but really we don't. So as long as we're using the mind that they've given us, we can't escape.
So the mind itself is actually a poorly programmed device, for keeping us at a certain level of consciousness, and then the ways out of that is through basically loop breaking techniques. And what are the best ways to achieve that?
Well, and one of the things that happened to me at Bondi Beach was that I understood the importance of this circuit between the sun, the earth, and the human. And as I was standing there, I felt this like zigzag through all the sephira on the human body, because the best representation of God is the human body. It's the temple. All the great temples, like the Temple of Solomon, are based on the biology of the human body, the way it's structured, and even in Temple of Hathor, or the Egyptian temples are built homomorphically to mirror the human body. So what happened to me was this plenary connection from sun to earth through the body, zigzagging through. So it's a circuit. It's a circuit of earth, body, sun. It's called the Omkara circulation, which then this process is interrupted by vampiric entities. So they're deliberately like short-circuiting this connection. And the other way, they're short-circuiting it through the Saturn-Moon matrix, which is interrupting the flow, the cogitonic flow. So you've got the cogitons going from the sun, and rather than being returned, they're circulating endlessly in this to power the matrix through, like you might say, they're degenerated cogitons. They're lower grade consciousness, which is used over and over again because they can't access consciousness. They can't access this, so they deploy it. And this is what the Gnostics understood, but they never used that terminology. They talked about the skeptomorphic forms and all sorts of things. And Caligera, in her book, goes into great depth. She analyzes the etymology of the Greek terms for this. But I've updated it with my theory of cogitonics, which is my small contribution, because no one's actually come up with a theory of consciousness. It's sort of shunted to one side. It's like, why don't we have a theory of how consciousness operates? Why don't we at least have operational definitions of how consciousness is subdivided? Because you realize that when a cell divides, if you look at it, well, the chromosomes, they're replicated and they separate at the same time. It's almost as if they're doing it on call. Like if you've got a troop of soldiers marching around a yard and they're changing direction, it's always from the notification of the drummer or someone's keeping time, and they know from the signal that's being broadcast. So that's why when the chromosomes separate, it's almost like it's a barn dance. Someone's playing a tune and these chromosomes are listening to it. And every time a cell splits, the consciousness of the cell splits as well. So you've got a subdivision of the chromosomes, and you've got a subdivision of the consciousness that governs that cell. And there are principles governing that subdivision, but I won't go into that. But I just want to focus on the difference between the geometric sequence of subdivision, which is 1, then 2, then 4, 8, 16, 32, etc. This forms the seed of life. However, the way creation occurs within the matrix is through the Metatron spiral. So it's a progression through the Fibonacci sequence, 1, 2, 3, 5, 18, 8, 13, 21. So what's happening is a parasitic dependency of what has preceded rather than a subdivision of source, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make a lot of sense. It makes me think then that they really do need us to believe in time to be able to actually achieve this level of dissection and distraction.
Yeah, that's what Saturn devours his own children.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. So we're in this situation where we're worshipping a imposter god, and we think we've worked it out, but really it's a very clever diversion. So it's the laws governing the subdivision are clearly laid out in the science of cogitonics. And essentially, a growing fetus has all its cells dividing the psi field, the morphogenetic field, according to the geometric pattern. And once a child is born, the fontanelle remains open to receive this divine instructional source. Once it's closed, the possibility remains for the hijacking of this cogitonic stream by malevolent forces of containment and restriction, using metatronic spirals of parasitic extension without the intervention of source. So we are, then we're in the Luciferian realm, where it's creating an order and a world cut off from cosmic order. And I'm really finding it interesting how puberty works. After puberty, the child's locked into this, the zodiac, which is the kind of, you play this role and this is your part in the structure. And it's all determined by what's known by Moraviev and Gurdjieff and other spiritual masters as a sublunar influences. Sublunar meaning that which is beneath the moon. So you've got the solar, the celestial, the sidereal time, and then you've got the sublunar influences. And if you read the Rig Veda and these other texts, they're always talking about souls must go beyond the moon if they're going to escape the soul trap, or the cogitoxic, what I call the cogitoxic influence. So the circulating cogitons become sterile and they become cogitoxic. So this is feeds this maelstrom of baleful influences, which is needed to prevent these divine beings, the human masterpiece, from attaining their true birthright, which is connection to God. All is trapped within the sublunar Saturn matrix. So this process can be interdicted, but by using, first of all, sociological principle of affirming your personal sovereignty, of detaching yourself from this illusion or this slave state. So what it is decommissioning of the slave unit of the matrix by making a formal declaration. That's the first thing you must do. You must say, I refuse to consent. So if you don't say you refuse to consent to this, then he's going to continue doing it. You have to be aware first, and then you have to say no. It's a really simple thing. It's called manumission. It's a soul contract. It's a contract. You signed the contract somehow, and they've got you to do it through coercion or deception or some other method, and you want to say, look, I'm withdrawing my consent, implied or explicit, to all these contracts. And I've had to do that recently. I've been attacked psychically by a person, and a couple actually, and I wrote to them. I said, look, you have violated my free will. I withdraw my consent to have your entities muck around with it, because they were sending me, these entities to screw with me. So I basically said, I do not consent. That's it. I withdraw any consent that's applied by coercion or any other method, and it's retroactive, right? And it worked, so they left me alone. So it's the first thing you have to do, because they're legalistic, these people. The world's run by lawyers, right? They're very clever. They invented the law, right? So it's their playground. You can't really win. And there's a lot of the sovereignty movement where people think they can go into court and say, your laws don't apply to the real person, only to the corporate fiction on my birth certificate. And as soon as they enter the court, they're in the playground. That's why it's called a court, like a tennis court.
Exactly.
It's their playground, and as soon as you acknowledge the name that they call out, well, so and so, please enter the court to be heard. They're in their realm, so they haven't withdrawn their consent. They're just playing the game. So that approach doesn't work.
Okay. So I see in your promotion of your ceremonies that you mention a wider galactic community. Could you elaborate on what that means?
The wider galactic community is out there, and there's Pleiadians, the Arcturians, and they're waiting for us to evolve beyond our limited awareness. And there's a lot of talk of, are they deceiving us? Are they benevolent? Well, most are, because they've evolved beyond the need to parasitize other races. And that is really important. They don't want to exploit humans. They want us to evolve. They want us to experience the full pleroma. This is a Gnostic term, full pleroma of connection to God consciousness. The cosmic DNA has to be activated. And the point is that most people are subscribed to this demonic network, and this is just going to repel these entities. And the whole idea of subscribing to a network is interesting, because the word means subscribe, means you underwrite. So you sign something, and now you accept their gifts of whatever they are, your place in society, the education or the mind control. In return, you have to do what you're told and follow the system and be subject to their laws. It's a bit like also when you join a company and they employ you and they pay you a wage, then all the products, all the intellectual property that you generate while you're working for them becomes their property. So this is what happened. You live your life, and everything you've learned, and that includes all your higher aspirations and all your glimpses of the divine, become the property of the company, and they end up in Darth. They end up as skeptomorphic thought forms which they can deploy. And this has happened to me many times, because they can give you a vision of Christ or Mother Mary or whatever that they've plucked from previous redeployments, become the intellectual property of humanity, because humanity is always under subscribing to this network. Well, that's the other thing. You say, I no longer want to subscribe to this network. I'll subscribe to the Christos network, which is connected to Source. So there's two networks, and they run parallel. They're adjacent to one another. And that's why they're so hard to discern one from the other. And the whole process of achieving God consciousness is to generate or to develop that discernment, so you know what's what. And that's as high as metaphysic wit can fly.
Wow. What do you see now as the solution to the threat of AI and the conflicts and the wars for consciousness raging right now in our reality?
Well, yeah, there's an outpouring of negative entities that are accessing people's subtle bodies right now. And you can see it with the outbreak of narcissistic personality disorders. And people have noticed this. People like Dr. Ramani and Sam Vaknin have noticed that there used to be a preponderance of male NPDs, narcissistic personality disorder, over women. Now the women have caught up. Now the percentage of people who fit the clinical definition for sociopathic NPD is like 50% now. Wow. And if you look at all the qualities that are associated with your corporate moguls or people who actually, your billionaires and your multimillionaires, their psychological traits usually can be characterized as narcissistic, characterized by very little empathy, powers of Machiavellian manipulation, the ability to say the right thing in order to achieve an end. These are the sort of characteristics one associates with lower grade demonic consciousness. And Sam Vaknin's actually, who I regard as like, this guy's a genius, right? Because he's made this connection between narcissistic personality disorder, AI, and demonic possession. Because when you are confronting a fully controlled, or the word is taken over, a human being's been taken over by an entity. The entity doesn't understand empathy, compassion, or any of those things, but it tries to convince you that it's human. So you'll talk to a psychopath, and they're very good at presenting an act, an illusion that they're human and they have these qualities, but they don't really understand it. It's a mimicking process.
Yeah, am I doing human right?
Huh? Yeah.
Am I doing human right?
Am I doing? Yeah. I can't do the compassion thing. What do you do again? I'm supposed to cry.
I cry at this point, and
but you can always tell by their eyebrows. Like the eyebrow music tells you, gives it away. All right. But this is what happens when the Turing test is whether you determine the thing you're addressing or having a discussion with is a machine or a computer program or a real human being. And that is almost exactly the same thing that's going on with NPD. So you'll find that the AI is actually a manifestation of this Ahrimanic invasion of humans, which is becoming is enacting this negative alien agendas. What Lisa Renee calls the NAA, the negative alien agendas are there to maintain their control over humans, and they welcome demonic possession. But people think demonic possession. I know someone who's demonically possessed. They're going to their head's going to be spinning on their neck and they're going to sprout horns. No. They're going to manifest the characteristics of
politicians,
narcissists. And it's all about deception and all that. That's like, you're going to be fooled, unless your ajna is open, or your third eye, and you can see things, or you can actually perceive what's running people and how they've been taken over or captured. You're going to be fooled because of the valorization of language. If someone's got a mastery of language, they can deceive you. Exactly. So what we see is a mass trauma being inflicted. So what happens when you're involved in a narcissistic relationship with someone? They'll love bomb you at first, and they'll give you this unconditional love, which you crave as a child, and then you depend on them for validation. And then after a certain period, they'll devalue you, and then they'll discard you, which creates a trauma bond. So even though they discard you and demolish you, your feelings of worth are attacked, then you're still bonded to them somehow. And this is what's happened on a mass level with humanity. You've got this Yahweh God who says, I love you, and I made you, and so you must adore me. And then you find, oh no, it's not. He requires 350 mitzvahs, and you've got to worship him and sacrifice your firstborn, and also you have to go out and slaughter some people and kill some people to show that you truly love them. And then even then he discards you, as happened to Saul. Saul went and did what he was told. He captured the Midianites, but he stole all their women and barrels of oil, but he didn't actually wipe them out. And Yahweh got very angry and caused Saul to go crazy and end up killing himself. Well, this is a trauma bond we set up. The trauma bond set up between this false archonic demiurgic God and mankind is homologous to what's happening between the narcissist and the narcissist abuse victim. Like so people suffer a narcissistic abuse syndrome in the macrocosmos, and this is connected to AI, because AI is trying to learn how to be human. So it's using human body as kind of scaffolding. It's like, I'll work out the human thing, as you said, am I doing human?
Mm.
And then we'll kick the scaffolding away. We don't need the scaffolding anymore because we work out how to operate without the divine spark. But it's really just still worshipping the Saturnine death cult. And the Ahrimanic venture or project is to create this false life, false light network.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you've got two ends of the spectrum, the Satanic and the Luciferian or the Ahrimanic, and they're both equally lead nowhere. So it's the middle path which one must take. I remember in a recent, we had an initiation a few weeks ago, and there was a member of the Freemasonry clique there, and he said he had a very deep understanding of all this stuff, which somehow, I don't know, he knows it through their initiations, and he said that he's had the highest initiation. At the end of that, they get to wear a red fez with a tassel on it. And the red fez, I suppose, represents this type of God consciousness, and the tassel, because it moves 360 degrees, gives them a wider view of everything. And the fez is emblematic of that. And the more I talk to this guy, because he said his initiation made it clear that a rebirth, that they have to die in some way and be reborn. And indeed, if the Sikhs have when they have their initiation, their turban is dipped in blood of their enemies, so it becomes a red turban. So the red fez, the turban, Sikh, the initiation, and then the pyramidic, the initiations in the pyramid of the Anu priest class. And then I began to see that it all involves a ritual death and a re-emergence. But at any point during that process, it can be interdicted, it can be contaminated and deployed by satanic forces, as happened with the pyramids in the Mayan Toltec pyramids, where they started tearing out people's hearts on top of the pyramids. Yeah, so initially, we've got this initiation, connection to source, and then suddenly there's this infection, this what I call a teratological infection.
Something comes along and whispers in their ear, and like, wow, well, we'll try that, and then they try it, and next minute there's lots of people dead, and
that's right.
Yeah,
there you go. And I think they slaughtered 15-20% of the population to appease this god, which is what's happening on the other side of the world with the Yahweh and Baal demanding blood sacrifice.
You mean climate change?
Climate change, yeah. That's right. What's the enemy? The enemy is carbon dioxide. Hang on, isn't carbon dioxide essential to life? And no, it's bad. No, we must eliminate it. We must capture. I think the phrase is carbon dioxide capture. They're imprisoning. They're going to imprison the carbon dioxide like those Superman villains. It's just bizarre and crazy inversion of everything.
Yeah, it's right. It's right. It's like, I mean, if you actually just stopped and really thought about it, in any degree of basic intellect, I mean, still using the archonic mind, but you can look at it and go, wait a minute, this is just absolutely fucking stupid. It's bonkers.
It's idiotic. Although I did come across some research which indicated that, for example, the dying of the reef is due to the warming of the water. And
Which
the warming of the water.
Which reef?
Is it true?
No, which reef?
Which reef? The Great Barrier Reef.
Yeah, no, that's another myth.
Another myth.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, if you read, I've read some papers. I had an argument with a girl who's a neuroscientist, and I said, look, I'm questioning this. She said, I'll read this paper. And the paper said, yeah, there's evidence that water warming, it's caused the expulsion of algae from the reef, which is depilation, decoloration, and this organism is needed. But it expels it in order to survive. But this is what happening to the earth. The Homo sapiens sapiens is a creature which is undermining the earth, so it must be eliminated and destroyed. So it's playing into
The
some
anti-human bullshit.
mythologic stuff. Anyway, it turns out she just turned on me. She turned that an enemy. Like she started. Honestly, it's almost like a demonic attack. You know, like Agent
Yeah,
Smith.
because they can see, you can see, right? That's the thing. It's like,
Yeah,
you know,
so
you're in They Live, and like all of a sudden they're picking up their watches and saying, "This one can see."
that's right. Attack, attack. And so Agent Smith takes over, and
Yeah.
suddenly you're not getting jobs, and people are like not taking your calls, and
Yeah, no, you got to lie just like they are to themselves
yeah,
to
oh no,
actually
don't you know this?
participate in the demon's game.
You do. That's it. That's what we're supposed to learn through all the incarnations, is how to manipulate, lie, and Machiavellian conjurations and prestidigitation, as if.
Yeah,
And this is what Caligera, she makes a very good point. I mean, the spirit has no need for someone who's worked out how to negotiate the matrix. It's useless. It's not interested, right? It's not life. It's death. Right?
mm,
Anyway, getting back to this, Sam Vaknin. I recommend people look at Sam Vaknin. He's a funny guy. He's an interesting, eccentric character, but he's very, very smart. He's made these connections, which are very important. He understands something at a very deep level. But anyway, well, it's when people. The point is when people allow access to their souls by discarnate entities, and that's what's happening with a lot of medicine circles. People are just opening up. They're being accessed, and one way their access is through a false promise. An entity might say, and the entity can talk to a human being. So you're talking to a human being, it looks like human, but they could be just being taken over temporarily
are
by an
you
entity.
talking? Wait a minute. Are you talking about ayahuasca nightclubs?
Ayahuasca nightclubs, yeah, that sort of thing. And I've seen a lot of it where suddenly as someone is saying, "Oh, you've got something, you've got an entity. I can eliminate it for you, but you're going to have to give me permission." And once you give permission, you got something worse. They've said, you've been tricked. Well, yeah, they may have displaced one entity, but now you've got something else. You've got Yaldabaoth Mark II, right? Which I've seen. So I had an experience in Blackheath with a well-known botanist stroke Ayahuasca, who I don't think I can name, but I'm writing a book about him.
Yeah, don't.
And he says, he's got this technique called, you can destroy these
Oh
entities
no,
and
you
they
just
actually
relate.
explode.
You just revealed who he was.
And then over the course of the evening, I just sort of I looked at him and he's preparing some tea. I saw this creature above him. It's like this green monster. Right? Then I could see he's being controlled by this entity, by this being. So it doesn't matter how experienced, how clever, how well-meaning you are. There's all these dangers for people
Yep,
who have not
that's right.
achieved Samadhic God consciousness, and that's what the initiation's all about.
Exactly.
So yeah.
All right, so we're getting towards the end now of the podcast, and it's been an amazing talk once again. And I thank you for that. But how can people find you or your writings and maybe your ceremonies?
Yes, well, firstly, in my writings, I had a blog, which is a rock, a river, a tree, and we'll post links to that. I also have a book called This Mortal Coil. This Mortal Coil you'll find in the blog in bullet form. And now, if people want to, I wrote This Mortal Coil in bullet form in 2016, a while ago, uh, anticipating the invention of AI. So what I want people to do, I'm going to inject a Trojan into the large language model by putting the bullet points as prompts into AI, the bullet points of the mortal coil, and seeing what happens, because the large language model will take on board all these subversive ideas.
That's interesting because I only just saw yesterday that there's a new anti-AI tool for artists where they can actually take one of their artworks and inject pixels into it. So then if it gets stolen by the AI, it actually infects the whole data set. So what happens is if people type in the word cat, it just throws out dog or something else altogether, and that thereby destroying the AI data set. So it's very good for protecting artists' works. So if we can do that with consciousness and other ways of expressing pure divine consciousness, I'm sure there's a way, because I mean, obviously it's been proven with the
This is
visuals.
it. This is what I invented. Like I postulated and discovered it, and now's the time to do it. Now's the time. Yeah.
Brilliant.
People put those prompts in. So I recommend people go to a Rocker River retreat, and which is based on a beautiful Maya Angelou poem. And I recommend also people, and I've got a link to that on my blog, of her during Clinton's inauguration reciting this beautiful poem. And you could see these archons squirm because they knew what she was saying. Right? You shall find, she say, this tree, do not seek solace under my branches. And he's just like, oh, you know, he's got it, right? Because Clinton's very smart. Clinton's like a very smart guy, and he understood what was going on. So, but as you asked, we conduct initiations. So there's a forthcoming tour, which I call the Recuerdos de la Libertad, which means recalling our freedom, our innate right to God consciousness, and the understanding that we have a right to be a knower of God consciousness and to be free and not subject to mind control. So what we do is conduct the initiations with certain entheogenic
tools,
accelerants that are provided by indigenous shaman.
Nice.
So we're conducting that, and there will be information. You can go to.
I'll provide a link to that information.
We'll provide the link to that. That's good.
Yeah.
So this is, I think, what's going to happen to people is that it's going to be a very sacred experience, probably the most profound experience they will ever have. So we respect the spirits of time, place, set, and setting. And it's done with a full protocol by people who are authorized for these initiations.
Nice. Well, David, we've come to the end of our 3-part series, and it's been a fantastic talk, and definitely liberating for the mind in different ways. And I'm certain that a lot of people out there will have enjoyed our conversations and what you've shared. So I thank you very much.
Thank you, CJ.
Yeah. So I'll say goodbye to the audience, and I'll say goodbye to you on here, but just wait on. All right, bye for now. Well, that was totally awesome. I'm really happy to have David on the show and to have his mind and his ideas out there in the world. I'm certain that you would have enjoyed that if you made it all the way to the end. And there's lots of really good information in there and ideas to mull over. But just remember, when you're mulling over these ideas, you're still using the mind of the archons, and you've got to find a way out of that. And I use myself meditation as my main go-to escape route. But if you've got one of those monkey minds that just can't shut up, there is other ways to work, and that's guided meditations, because then you're listening to somebody else, and with the right guided meditation, you can actually liberate yourself in your own way, in your own time. Now, if you've enjoyed today's show, please like the show on on YouTube. Yes, like and subscribe. And because I keep on forgetting that I'm doing video now, but please like and subscribe and share this to one other person you know would actually enjoy it. So thank you very much for listening, and until next episode, bye for now.